right. So, welcome everybody to our second Ollie fall class. And I'm so happy today to be facilitating this near death and spiritually transformative experiences group. We are an adult learners program, and we're curious about these experiences. And so today we have a wonderful speaker, a wonderful person, and I've had the pleasure of knowing about Steve for quite a while and hearing about him, a little bit about him. I talked to him last week, and his story is fascinating, and I think you will really enjoy hearing about him, and also about his work in the world since he's had his experiences, how it's transformed his life, and how he helps others. So Steve Noack, I want to say hello and come on in.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. It's definitely been a journey. It's an experience, as we talked about earlier, that had I not walked through it, I would have and felt it, I would have a hard time uh, believing it. But I firmly know now that what I experienced is available to everybody, and that we're all the same, and we're all connected and all one.
Awesome. So where do you want to start, Steve? Do you want to
Well, I
start?
could start at 4. I mean,
Okay.
that's the earliest experience, I suppose.
All right. That sounds great. So let's start there.
Sure. I was not religious. I think that's important to note. My parents never brought me to church in childhood. They didn't have anything to do with God in the house, anything like that, or a reference to the word that would be our interpretation of this energy. Um, but at 4 years old, I was completely run over by a car. I was across the street from my house at my neighbor's house playing. I was on a big wheel. I don't know if many people know what that is, but it's a very low to the ground plastic tricycle of the 70s. This was 1979. I'm across the street, and my brother comes to the other side of the road, and he says, "Time to come home." And I say, "Okay." And I just shot down the driveway. In between two parked cars, there was another car coming, and the car didn't see me, of course, and ran me over. Actually, underneath the car, the woman still didn't know she had hit me, and she dragged me to the end of the road. And so what I experienced is like a blur. And then the next thing I knew is I was above myself, and I was watching my eyes roll on the back of my head. And then everything just closed, like the end of a movie where it just goes black and it shrinks, and then it opened again. And I'm sitting on someone on their lap, and I'm leaning on them to the side like this. And I open my eyes, and my head is facing in a downward position. And I notice hair. It's like silvery white hair. Notice the bottom of a robe. And my first thought is, what happened? So I turned to ask this person, who I thought was a person that I was sitting on, what happened. And when I turned to ask this person what happened, it wasn't a person at all. It was a being of light in a hooded robe, with no face. There was only light where their face should be. And they said, "Stephen, you're in an accident. Put your head down. Everything's going to be all right." Now, that's something that would echo again in 2008. And then that's when everything would pick up again. So, Stephen, put your head down. Everything's going to be all right. And I did. And as I did, I'm staring in this being's face. My head is on their chest. And I'm feeling like I'm getting stretched. I'm just getting pulled and stretched deeper into the light of this being's hood, face, whatever it was. I was going into that place. And I traveled for a bit. I don't really, so long ago, and it was so uh, non-relative to time, but it felt like I traveled a bit. And as I got to apparently where I was supposed to be, this scene started to materialize in front of me, and it was this very heavenly scene. It was like the most perfect nature movie, photograph, whatever you want to call it, um, that I was in. There were flowers there. that I still haven't seen still to this day. There were colors that were alive with their own sovereignty, choosing to be there as if they were beings of their own, free will. And so I see flowers and I see colors, and I see the colors are just moving and vibrating, um, again, like they're their own beings. And there's meadows and there's grass and there's rivers and there's mountains. And I see paths. They're almost kind of like cobblestone paths. And I'm just standing watching this scene. And some of you might already have the question, how do you remember all that at 4? I didn't. Took quite a few years, about 5 to 6 years before the memories started to come back. Even though I knew something had happened, I couldn't recall what. And it wasn't until about 11 when all this stuff started to come back. Um, so I'm in this scene and I see these paths and I'm starting to notice these different figures. There's like, I could see like silhouettes of people. Uh, they looked like they were playing and having fun. And the more I kind of tuned in and focused on them, the more details I could see. And I see an elderly man and a little girl playing off to my left at like the end of this path. And strangest feeling still to this day is that they were off in the distance, but they were right next to me. And that's something I have a hard time obviously conveying, but they were playing. And I started to get the sense of like, this is the greatest carnival on earth. I kind of want to stay here. And it was like being in a glass tube TV and then going to a high definition TV. Everything was so crisp and clear and perfect and vibrant. It was alive compared to kind of what I feel uh, in the density of where we are now. It feels much heavier and murkier and distorted a bit. So it was clear. It was perfect. And this little girl and this elderly man are playing, and she laughs. And when she does this, there's something that comes out of her and it goes through the scene, the atmosphere, the air, whatever you want to call it. And it touches me right in the center of my chest. And that's when this wave goes through me. And I knew everything came from this place, everything would return to it. That it was actually my home and my identity. And I instantly also knew that everything that goes there has to be the correct frequency and vibration. Otherwise, it was not even going to be able to sustain itself. It was so high there in love and energy. I just instantly knew that you would not be able to form unless you were love in this place. You wouldn't be able to be here. Um, you'd be very unsustainable. So as I get this feeling and it's going through me and I'm like, yeah, I'm home. I wanted to stay. And then that's when I said, I want to stay here. And this being is kind of no longer visible, but with me. And the being says, it's not your time. We have some other things to show you. That's when it was like this scene was painted on canvas and somebody just pulled it away. And I'm standing in this kind of like a night sky, but it has no stars. And standing, and that's most of this experience is standing just, okay, 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 in somewhat of a, I don't want to say a state of confusion, but in just, okay, 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 very, I don't want to say obedient either, but I was just walking through it, so to speak. And a lot of this stuff would come back later. So they pull away. The scene that I'm in, I'm standing in this night sky. I start to notice these lines that start to form. They're going straight down, straight across. They look like a grid pattern. And I wonder to myself, what is that? And that's when I hear a voice say, this is the quantum field. This is what connects all living beings together as a one. Then I'm like, okay. That kind of fades away. The next thing I see is a pillar of light just coming straight down in front of me. And naturally, my curiosity, what's that? And the being says, this is you as you enter the world as the energy of love, and then you spend your energy to have an experience in material reality. And as the being says this, I see these cords coming out from this column, going to the screen that's kind of like almost like a half a screen. I'm not sure if I couldn't see perceive what was behind me, but I see this screen in front of me, this column of light, and these cords going out from it as this being is explaining to me that we spend our energy to having a material experience, and that all of our emotions and thoughts and experiences are recorded in this field. And they tell me this as I see kind of like look like mini TV sets. They're just all over, placed in this screen. Some were still empty. Some had, I don't know if you would call it a memory, if you would call it was a scene inside the screen. And so I could see the cords going out to these screens. And then that's when the being says, this is a life review. But people do not have to die to have their life review. People do not have to die to enter heaven. And then that scene fades. The being also mentioned the word ascension. This is a process that you will go through while you're alive, this life review, and you will call it ascension. And so as that just fades away, still in this night-like room, it's not pitch black, it's just like a sky. That's when I noticed something kind of up and to the left, and it looks like a credit card, and it's missing the corner, and it has circuits on it. And I think to myself, what's this? And then the being says, this is your divine blueprint. This is the image of creator that you were made in. All people have this image. And so that fades away. And the next thing I see is a triangle coming straight towards me. This triangle gets towards me until it's really big, and it's a light. It's glowing like bluish, whitish light. And there's a point on each tip. And then there's one in the center. And then that's when the being says to me, this is Heavenly Father, this is Divine Mother, this is Holy Son. Make these three one. That goes away. And I wake up a few days later, broken ribs, I had collapsed lungs, broken clavicle, broken shoulder blade. Whole side of my body was road rash from getting dragged down the road. There were a few other things. I still have the newspaper clippings, which is interesting. So I come out of it, and my first question to my parents is, what happened? And they're like, you were in an accident. I'm like, it just didn't feel right. I knew something else had happened. And so I never realized until much later how much that event affected me. And so about 5-6 years later, I start to have the memory of sitting with this being. And I'm like, I knew it. I knew something happened. And so I start to talk about it, and I try to talk to my parents and whoever would listen, because to me, it was big. It was like, wow, okay, something did happen. That was real. So I try to talk about it. I realized very quickly how awkward and kind of even more of a outcast it made me feel. So I learned to not talk about it, to compartmentalize it. And I had taught myself that this is just something happens when you leave your body. It's just something that happened to you because you had this happen to you. It's nothing that you even need to talk about or revisit. And that's where I was with it for a long time. Even though I had these memories, I shared them with a few people, but I never really knew what they actually meant. Like, I'm like, okay, why? What did it mean? What did it mean? I wouldn't find that out until like 2008. And so 4 years old, very young, hard to remember, start to get the memories back. I talk about it, realize that's not a good thing to talk about. I go through my life with this extra sensitivity where I just didn't understand how people didn't feel what I felt in certain situations. It led to a lot of confusion, confusion. I didn't understand how someone could do this or do that, or things like that. But I was also having visions, and my parents would bring me to the eye doctor because I didn't know what was happening. And anybody who's ever seen Willy Wonka, it was like all of a sudden my vision would go to that kid that was in a million pieces, and there'd be a million scrambled pieces, and then it would stop. And so my parents brought me to the eye doctor, nothing wrong. Um, so I was having visions. I was always extra sensitive, perceiving things that others couldn't. However, I learned that, or was taught that that was a weakness. And so I went on, began to sink into the human, live my normal life. After getting run over by a car, I flipped the car over when I was 19 at 75 miles an hour 5 times. 3 people flew out of the car as it was rolling. Everyone landed on the grass, got up and walked away. And there were countless examples of that. However, through these examples of these otherworldly beings saving my butt again and again, which I could not explain, whether it was the scars I have on my left side from falling off a cliff, not knowing how I was able to grab something, or falling out of a tree when I was around 7 at my grandmother's, and it was about good 20 feet above the cement patio, and I hit every branch on the way down. Still don't know how I grabbed the last branch. The entire world was spinning. There was something else at play. And so I would see that throughout my life. However, I accumulated a massive amount of trauma to my body. So by the time I was 33, I was a store manager at GameStop. I'm almost a skeptic at this point. I'm like, if there is a God, I don't think he likes me, because I had this experience when I was young, and all this pain and nothing to show for it. Nothing, where are you, God, type moments, many of them, as I was growing up, especially because of what happened to me. So I became a little bitter at God. Um, so are there any questions yet
Anybody have any questions?
before I move on to uh, the
Okay.
next?
Well, let me just ask you. There was one thing that I noted
Mm-hmm.
that I was curious about. Okay, so when you saw the triangle, okay,
Mm-hmm.
they were telling you that this is the Trinity, the
Yes.
Father, Mother, and Son
Mm-hmm.
make this one.
Make these three one. Yeah.
Make these three one. Okay. So that then you were back in your body. So it's
Yeah.
like they left you with that final,
Yep.
question or
And it took me 30 years to figure out even what it meant.
that meant. Okay. All right.
But that's when we get to the advanced quantum physics theories of triangle singularity.
Okay. All right. Very good. And
And
now, oh, go ahead. Did you want to say something?
no, no, no. Go ahead.
Okay. So we're gonna go further into your journey. And Grace, did you want to ask a question?
It was just sort of like a statement in that I believe, Stephen, you are very, very lucky. I had a 4-year-old girl run over by a station wagon laden
Oh,
down with newspapers, and she too was on a big wheel going down the driveway.
oh,
And my friend did not make it, and her mother and father never made it through it. So
so sorry.
bless you in some shape, manner, or form that you survived and you're here to share with us today. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm so sorry for their loss and your loss.
Thank you.
And I think it was due to my stubbornness, to be honest with you. I was like, and that's been a theme that has gotten me through. Um, but it wasn't until
Yes.
I began to use my stubbornness on myself rather than use it on the outside world. And so it took a while to make that turn
Yes.
towards the inner me. Um,
So
so
so from 4 years old up until about you were saying like in 2008. So you were
mhm.
about how old? You just kind of
I was like
lived a normal
33.
33, and you just
Yeah.
kind of lived a normal life, right, with a normal job, but you knew
Yeah, even
it
though I
happened.
would have like visions, or I would have knowings, or I would have certain things, I just I never connected the two. I never connected me being the way I was because of the NDE. I didn't think about it. It was gone. It was compartmentalized as a past memory. I didn't have to even think about it.
Okay. All right. I see Alice has her hand up. Alice, did you want to ask a question before he goes on with the story? Oh, let's unmute so we can hear you. Can you unmute, Alice? All right. Alice, you can just go to the microphone on the bottom and click on that. There should be a
Yeah, I
little.
got it. I
Okay.
got it. I couldn't, it wouldn't come down the page.
All right. No
Okay,
worries.
how did you end up recalling all of this? I mean, did you have hypnosis? Did you see a psychiatrist, psychologist? I mean, how did it come about that you finally got these?
Just started coming back. I just
Just-
started remembering. Between 4 and about 7, 8, I would think of it and I'd be overwhelmed with these feelings and these emotions. And I knew there was something more there.
Mhm.
But it's like tell me what you ate 3 weeks ago on a Wednesday for lunch.
Right, okay.
That's what it felt like. I knew I had eaten lunch, but I couldn't remember what I ate 3 weeks ago on a Wednesday for lunch. And so they just began coming back. I would think about it, and that's when the memory would come with that energy as I began to get older. And there would be more and more of that happening. And that's when I was like, hey, this happened and this happened and this happened. And people were looking at me like I'm not right. So I learned that it's something you don't talk about and compartmentalized it. Yeah. I figured it's just something that happens when that happens to you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
All right. So I'm going to let you go on now with your journey. And
Sure. So 2008, I'm basically a store manager at GameStop. I'm pretty close to being a skeptic as much as you can. I figured if there was a God, again, doesn't like me, there might be aliens. Who am I to say? But I've never experienced one. There might be angels, but I've never experienced one. And that's where my head was at. So 2008, again, all the trauma I had caused to my body with the accidents. I played sports, dislocated limbs, broken bones, torn ligaments. By the time I was 33, I was taking pain medication just to get up and go to work. And I was starting to become miserable from that cycle. So I was riddled with pain. I figured I'd be in a wheelchair by the time I was 60. I would get up and I'd be like the Tin Man. I'd be like trying to straighten myself out. I'd go to the doctor. They're like, you got arthritis here and arthritis here and a degenerated this and that. And it was just the narrative that had consumed my life at that point. And so I'm working at GameStop. I'm going to have surgery to have my elbow cleared of scar tissue. And that's when I get into the office. I sit down. I hadn't had any medication yet. I wasn't plugged in. And I'm starting to get this panic. And I can't explain it. I've never had a panic attack in my life. That was the only time. And I don't even know how it happened or where it came from because I wasn't thinking of anything. But I start to get this panic just fill my body. And I'm like, I got to get out of here. And I didn't know why. And it was that moment that I sat up and I went to get up and I couldn't get up. And there was this energy, this warm energy that started at my feet and it encapsulated. I could feel the pressure of it on my body and it was warm and it encapsulated and it went all the way around my body. And when it did that, I felt this love I had not felt since I was 4. And it was a, oh my God moment. I'm in that place again. And then that's when the being said to me, Stephen, put your head down. Everything's going to be all right. And I went, holy crap. That was the being that spoke to me at 4, except now I'm awake and I'm alive. So I could no longer push it over here into the closet. It had become real. And so at that moment, I felt this love, this warm love Just tell me everything's going to be okay. And it literally sat me down. Didn't matter how much I wanted to sit up, it sat me down and told me everything was going to be okay. Covered me in this warm energy that I had not tasted since I've been to that place. And so I go in, I calm down, I go in, have the surgery, I come out. A few days later, I wake up in the middle of the night and there's a ball of light in the corner of my room. And I'm like, what is that? And I'm like, it's not a lamp. It's not the street lights. It's not this. It's not that. I'm going through the whole routine. Am I insane? And I'm checking everything to make sure I'm not. Eventually get tired enough to fall asleep. That over the next couple of weeks, there's more than one ball of light. And I don't know what's happening. I try to talk to my partner about this. She's apprehensive. She's like, what's going on with you type thing. And so I have no one to talk to about it. And so I go to work. I'm starting to now experience telepathy. And I've never experienced telepathy in my life, never believed it. But I'm starting to hear people say things in my mind, not in my voice. And I'm like, what is going on? And so it took a few days. And I was like, there's something going on. Let me try this. And so what I would do is I would ring a customer out and I would ask them in my mind, do you want a bag? And I would hear the response and then I would ask them out loud. And then I'm like, it matches, it matches, it matches. And so after I did enough of that, I convinced myself that I wasn't losing my mind. I would start to experience other things while I was at work, like these surges of energy just rush through me. And I would start laughing out of nowhere. I would start crying out of nowhere for no reason, not thinking of anything. My assistant manager's like, what's going on with you? And so during this time period, I'm really kind of shutting things down. I'm like, what's going on? I'm trying to keep my sanity, keep the seams together. So I'm going to work. I go on my lunch break one day, and I will never forget this. I stood in a gas station and I asked, or I didn't ask, the child in front of me asked their parent, they got out of line. They said, can I have this piece of candy? And they said, can I have this? And they held it up. They had one. Father said yes. He went back to stand with his father. And then he did the same thing again, but he didn't say, can I have another one of these? He said, can I have this? Father said yes. And he went back in line and what just happened? And so I was like, okay, no big deal. Paid for my gas, went out to the car, and I started the car. And it was this woman on the radio. The radio was already on, and she's winning a radio contest. And I'm like, okay, cool. Phone starts ringing on the radio. And now they're asking her the question to the answer that I had just heard. I said, I just heard this answer. And so that was the day I was like, do I need to check in somewhere? But I went back to work. One of the crazier experiences, I wouldn't say crazy, I would say more life-changing, was the experience with this voice that said, I am. And I had never heard this reference. Again, parents didn't bring me to church, didn't know what it meant. And so I'm driving home one day and I'm beating myself up and I'm trying to figure all this stuff out in my mind. Why is this happening? I'm also starting to see energy, almost like little rainbows, little waves, if you will, around me and just in places that I was. And so I'm driving home one day and I'm beating myself up, all my failures as a father, all my failures as this and in life and how I could never do and complete my projects. And that's when this voice starts speaking to me. It's like to my right, and it starts telling me how beautiful I am and all the wonderful things that I'd done and all the people that loved me and what a blessing I was and all this stuff that I had never heard in my life. And so I was like, and I was already kind of sensitive. I could already kind of hear spirits, discern energy at that point. So I was like, who are you? And then the voice says, I am. And I say, okay, I am who? Voice says, I am. And I'm driving my car at this moment. Voice says, I am. That's the second response. And I say, I heard you the first time. I am who? And then I could like really adamant. So that's when the voice says, I am, a third time. And it was like someone shocked me with a multi-dimensional stun gun or something, because all of a sudden, every memory I had ever had in my life came rushing through, and every emotion that I'd ever felt simultaneously, but at the same time. And that was my first taste of duality and non-duality. And it was a singularizing of my system and where my trauma had trapped me in the past and drained me of my potential. And so there was that moment. As soon as the third one hit, I was all these memories, emotions, I'm feeling them separately, but at the same time, I start crying and crying and crying. Hardest I ever cried in my life. I had to pull the car over, take some time to gather myself and go, what the heck was that? And so eventually 15, 20 minutes later, I pull out of the parking lot. Next few days, I try to go to different churches to try to talk to them and ask them about what was going on, because I'm like, there is some other intelligent energy at play here, and I don't know what it is. And so I'm talking to them, and I'm also getting these feelings that we are in a spiritual war for our energy and our identity. There's a war in heaven occurring within me, and I'm becoming aware of that, a war for the heaven in me. And so I go to churches, and it didn't matter the denomination. I went to every one I could find, try to talk to people. I didn't understand how they didn't know that we were being targeted in such a way that our potential would be taken from us by these other malevolent energies, or whatever you want to call them. But, you know, they're biblical. I figured they would know some of that stuff, but they didn't understand it. And so I went to those churches, didn't get much help. A couple doors were locked. I wound up crying on the steps. Over the next few days, I'm not only seeing energy, I'm now starting to see silhouettes. I'm starting to see full-blown figures walking around me. They don't have details. Some are just smoky, some are dark, and some are really light. And I just see them moving back and forth constantly. And so I think my first reaction is, I'm being haunted here. Something's happening here. So I start telling them, go away, leave me alone, et cetera, et cetera. I start going through the paces of contacting, paranormal people, et cetera, doing everything I can. I didn't sleep for like days when that happened. And so it really fractured my reality in a way where I was now seeing something that was once hidden to me. And so through that process of thinking I'm losing my mind, I'm having these angelic synchronicities that I can't explain. I'm like, there's this other energy in me that feels like a nuclear reactor. I can't shut it off. It's like being a child on Christmas Eve on steroids, and you just can't shut that energy off. And that's what it was like for a little while. One day, this energy is like, basically through the urge is like, you need to go down to the river. Not exactly saying it just yet, though they communicate in that way. But the urge is telling me to go to a river. And I'm like, all right, drove to the river, get there. I go down to the river. I'm like, all right, I'm here, God. What do you want? Where are you? And that was me literally talking to God in that way. I'm like, I'm here. What do you want? And nothing. Dead silence. However, I walked back to the car, turned the car on, radio's on. I didn't have a tape playing. The very first lines to come out of the radio, going down to the river to pray, get washed by the water, going down to the river to pray. And I'm like, son of a bitch. I'm like, the radio just answered me. And then I became very aware of all these other ways that creator was speaking to me that I wasn't aware of before. And so I would begin to overhear I could be in a public place. I would begin to overhear conversations, and there'd be 1, 2, 3 words highlighted out of that conversation, and everything else pushed into the background. And those 3 words were something that was being said to me. And so there were things like that. I was still working at GameStop. Um, my my workers are starting to look at me like I'm a little funny because of all this stuff that's going on. I have an elderly woman who one day falls outside my store, and she hits the cement. She's in a lot of pain. I'm the first one there, and someone else comes out next door. I say, go call the ambulance. I'm staying with her, and I put my hand on her back, and a few moments later, she turned to me and she looked at me and she goes, I'm all warm and I have no pain. And I'm like, it freaked me out. It genuinely freaked me out because I felt the warmth go up my arm. I went back to work. I couldn't stop thinking about it. That's when I began to look into healing, et cetera, et cetera. And so I began to look towards healing. I had to leave my job. It was just too invasive to work with the public. I was not only hearing thoughts that weren't mine, I was beginning to feel pain. When people would walk in, I could feel like I'll get a neck pain. They would leave and it would go away and things like that. And so, it was a steep learning curve to figure that out on your own. So I leave. I'm still kind of being bothered, but not so much by these apparitions. But now they're also speaking to me and they're telling me, you're a piece of crap. You're going to go to hell. You never succeeded at anything in your life. You're going to be worthless the rest of your life, et cetera, et cetera. And that's when a monumental moment occurred. I didn't believe in extraterrestrials, angels, whatever you want to call them. One day I'm sitting there going through this, and that's when I feel this energy again. I could feel the pressure of it on my body. I recognized the feeling from when that voice spoke to me during the surgery, when they came back. And they say, we're from the Galactic Federation. We are from the Divine Council of Nine. And what you're experiencing is reality happening through you. It's not happening to you. These are the projections of the distortions of your trauma and the aspects of you that had never gotten love. They never got to finish their circuit, so to speak. And that's when it dawned on me. I said, holy cow, I'm in charge. And they said, you're a divine instrument, but you're very out of tune. And so at that moment, I said, leave me alone. I don't want anything to do with you. Go away. And so I took my phone. I started looking up Galactic Federation, Divine Council of Nine, all this stuff. And here's all this information on it. And I had never heard of it before. So it's kind of like the I am experience. So the next time they return, and the first time I was eating a bowl of Cheerios, and I never eat Cheerios, but I was eating Cheerios, and the second time, same thing, when I was eating a bowl of Cheerios. So I don't know what that has to do with it, but maybe it's because it's the shape of the heart field, the torus field. So second time they return, I listen a little better. They begin to speak to me about reconnecting to the Trinity, but they also told me that this was also representative of heaven, earth, and the sun, mind, heart, and body, and that there was a circuit here that needed to be completed. And that circuit needed to be completed and rooted in truth. And then that's when they got to my divine blueprint. And they said, you were already made in the perfect image of wholeness. You need to believe you are this image. Your subconscious and your DNA already has this image built in for you to ground yourself into a direct current. And they're giving me a little bit more about the dynamics of the nervous system, about polarity, positive and negative, and how to create what's known as action potentials in the body to release trauma and pain. They're teaching me how to rewire my body into a state where I had no pain. And the real convincing moment of me being a skeptic was when I started to have no pain, when it just went away as they visited me and talked to me. When they left, all my pain came back. And I'm like, son of a gun. And so I made it kind of like, I'm like, I'm getting back to that place. I'm going back to heaven. It doesn't matter. There's nothing that's going to stop me. I'm going to get back to heaven in this body while I'm alive, because I want to be in that place where I have no pain. I have no feedback. I have no distortion. None of these things that are telling me I'm a failure, et cetera, et cetera. So they tell me I'm a divine instrument. I'm out of tune. I start putting into practice, connecting with the feeling of knowing, teaching me how to reprogram my subconscious mind for my body to heal, is what they're doing during some of these visits. I'm also now having dreams where I'm up on these ships. I'm wearing a white suit. I have no hair. These dreams are days and weeks apart. Yet, whenever I had one of them, I would wake up covered in sweat. And I'd be in different various parts of the same ship, just different areas. Still at that time, I'm like, man, yeah, it feels real and it feels good, but I still don't know. And I think it's good to keep a healthy skepticism where I need to feel tangible something. I need to see it and experience a few times before I put in any belief into it. And that was me. And that's kind of how I got here. Now, didn't stop there. There were moments of just, I would pick up the phone and call somebody and be like, yeah, you wanted me to call you? And they're like, no, I was just thinking that. And I would really freak out my friends, family. I had no idea. I simply felt the sensation that I was supposed to call this person. I thought in my rational mind that I owed them a call back. I didn't see there. That was it. That was the only feeling behind things like that. And so one night, I'm sitting out in my lawn chair, and mind you, through all this, I'm trying to stay a father, a partner, and my partner's not really open to hearing about any of this. So I'm trying not to talk about it, although it's really breaking down the seams of my reality. So I'm sitting out in the yard and I'm in the chair and I'm just admiring the sunset and the sky. And that's when I feel myself getting lifted, stretched out in a way that I felt stretched out before during that experience at 4. And I get lifted up into this white light. There's nothing, there's just white light. And then that's when these beings announce themselves as the Sidriel, some angelic race. They tell me that I am a being of energy playing a character inside a quantum system, and that I am not the experiences I'm having. I am not the feelings I'm feeling, and I am not the story that I'm having. I am the one having the story, and they begin to separate me and teach me about non-attachment. They tell me that I have an operating system and a hard drive that was programmed in a way that's causing me this distortion now, and that I needed to uninstall the programs from my cellular memory and subconscious mind, and that they would guide me how. So one day, as I'm complaining and complaining and complaining, they're like, speak to it. Tell it you're no longer welcome here, but thank you. And then that really set me on the journey to having no pain. So they're also teaching me about, like I mentioned earlier, that our cells have a positive and negative, and that largely throughout our lives, we become locked in a survival mode where we're storing in our emotions because we bypass feeling them in the now, and that this kind of disconnects this life force energy circuit that we're connected to, our conscious and subconscious mind. And so they were showing me that the upgrades and that the evolution of humanity that I would help, participate in, which when they told me that, I'm like, you got the wrong guy. I promise you, you got the wrong guy. So when they told me this upgrade was going to happen for humanity, where their consciousness was going to shift, and that the conscious and subconscious mind were going to become one, these opposing currents were going to become one, they began to teach me that we had stored our trauma in our body, and that we're shifting into a system where it will be processed intuitively right away rather than stored. But I had to walk through the process of rewiring my nervous system into a stationary ground state, which is a direct current rather than the alternating current that most people are in, where they have no grounding in who they are and they're pushed around inside their nervous system. They taught me about time, that time is not relative. It's a manufacturing of our mind. It's where you had attached basically a story to the trauma, and that I didn't need to have an opinion about my trauma to heal it. And so they were walking me through how to shift my body and reverse the polarity in my own cells. And I began this neuroscience search. So I'm like, what's happening to my body, which is known as an action potential when the ion channels in the membranes of our cells open and begin to release negative charge. And so they're teaching me how to do this with the torus field of my heart. And that's when they tell me you have a sun in the center of your chest. That sun is capable of transmuting all of your neurotransmission. You do not need to store it in your body, and you do not need to project it onto others. And then that's when, I'm starting to figure out I had been doing that my whole life, projecting my pain onto others. And so they're walking me through finding a root in my identity so that I can ground myself into a direct current. But they're also walking me through what it meant for me physiologically, that I would magnetize all the cells in my body when I completed the thought circuit of knowing myself as whatever the as is that I tell myself. I'm already whole. I'm already loved. I'm already validated. So they're teaching me how to reprogram myself so that I can have enough energy to heal my body in that process. And so I left that job. I went into dementia and Alzheimer's care for 8 years after that. That's when I had the biggest epiphanies. And I was like, man, one day it just hit me. I'm like, I had to polish someone's silver and I wanted to put it down. And I'm like, that's good enough. And I put it down. And then that's when something inside of me said, that's a reflection of the inner you. You need to finish that. And I went, yeah, you're right. And I finished it and I did a perfect job and I felt it in me. I'm like, man, that feels so much better. So I started to feel this need to garden. I'd never gardened. So I'm gardening now and I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm gardening and I'm planting stuff. And then that's when I'm turning the dirt and I could feel energy in me turning. And I'm hypersensitive now. So people that know me would understand. So I'm turning the dirt and I could feel something in me being alleviated. And I'm like, wow. So I'm getting the witness of what this feels like to interface with reality as a projection of my own making, put it that way. So I'm going through this Alzheimer dementia care with people. I'm like not happy at my job still. I'm going through this stuff and that's what's making me not happy. I'm trying to hang on to my sanity, my family. I had to change jobs. And then that's when they're like, you're never going to leave where you are if you're not thankful for where you are, because your charge for your quantum leap is over there. You have no fuel. So in other words, they were guiding me through a quantum leap. And that's when I realized a few months later, I went, holy crap, I'm my future self guiding my past self in the present moment. I was like, that's pretty cool. And so time no longer relative. But as I'm going through dementia and Alzheimer's, I could see God. And it wasn't until I started to get really thankful and understanding how much I was helping these people, I could see God looking at me in their eyes. I'm like, that's God, that's God, that's God. I said, it was never about the characters. I'm having a love story with the energy of creation itself through these people. And then that changed everything. I was like, it's all sacred. I am in the Garden of Eden, but it's covered over by duality and our ego. And so there's a lot more. I can keep going, but I will pause because I talk a lot. So.
Oh, wow. It's fascinating. And I'm sure there are questions or comments or.
And no, I never took any psychedelics for any of this. No, I don't believe in that.
Right. Yeah. Wow. All right. So, some
And
of
they
the,
also taught me that the sun they were referring to was the Christ within me.
right.
And so I became a Christ follower, and that's what I consider myself. I will follow that pure energy until I'm gone.
Yeah. And that's within every being, correct? Yeah.
Yeah. I knew for some reason it was my mission that I needed to embody this energy and you
Yeah.
know, eliminate what was not it. And that started my process of purification. I interrupted you. I'm sorry. I went on like a 7 to 8 year sabbatical where I did away with everything. I would get out of work, go into nature, go into hot salt baths. I would challenge my will monumentally.
Wow. Wow. All right. I'm going to look and see if anyone has any questions. Does anyone have any questions for Steve at this point? Okay. So,
Easy crowd, easy crowd.
yeah.
And so they also taught me like not only how to heal through the power of intention and knowing, but how to do it over various distances through the quantum field. One of the most important things they did teach me was to forgive everyone I had ever spent time with. Speak this out loud. I forgive everyone I ever shared time with. I send you love and forgiveness, and I ask for the same in return. And this released so much emotional buildup between the toxic family system. And so I learned to go to the field first.
Mhm. And what about self-forgiveness? Is that in there also? And self-love, right?
Very much so. There is an inner child in all of us that kind of represents the subconscious mind. And
Mhm.
so they began to teach me to look at your fear, worry, stress, anxiety, anger as your inner child coming to protect you when it no longer needs to protect you. So you have to be the one to tell them you're safe, you're whole, you're loved, and guide them back into union and presence with you because that inner child's going to want to go over there.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of that growing up. I had a lot of childhood trauma, a lot of bad stuff happen at home. And so my mind, I'm an Aquarius, so I'm always thinking. And I would overthink on this stuff so much later, only to realize that it was a feedback loop trying to reconfigure itself into truth, but it would never happen. And so that I had to give that to the Christ. I had to give that to what was capable of alchemizing and transforming these loops that were trapping my potential. They also taught me the body's like a battery, you know.
Mhm. Yeah. Very interesting. So, can you talk a little bit about what you're doing now and what your life is like? How is your life different now than before? You know, when you were
Sure.
describing the journey.
Yeah. So I eventually left my job. Slowly, people would be like, hey, you seem to know a lot about this or this. Can you help this person or can you help this person? And I would do it here and there, and it began to snowball, and even more so when, and I didn't talk about my story at that point. Even more so when somebody was asked me to come on their podcast. It was Jeff, and he asked me, "You want to tell your story?" I'm like, "Yeah, okay." And then that just snowballed into more people wanting to hear more, and until it became what I do now full time. And it changed my life in such a way where um, I get such a high from helping people that I want to chase that. I want to chase that feeling that I feel from Creator after I've worked on a sick child in the hospital somewhere. So I began to learn that I wanted more of that feeling. And going into nature was huge because I did it so much as a child. I didn't realize I was regulating my nervous system as I was doing it. So they began to tell me, need to start going in nature more. That's when I started to take that sabbatical, um, where I could cultivate energy. And so what my life looks like now is I have the time to dedicate the love not only to myself, so forgiving that younger child, giving them the love that they never got from their parent. Very important to speak that into yourself. That
Mhm.
recognize them. I see you. I want to hear you. Because when you push away your anger and your anxiety and your fear, you're pushing away that inner child who is already abandoned again, and you're creating more separation. So my life now is getting up and usually meeting with clients, probably 2 to 4 or 5 a day. Some weeks are slower than others. I'm working on my book still. I did do a small participation in a book where a lot of people shared their experiences. But now I'm dedicated to getting a formula for people to release themselves from this matrix where our identity is attacked consistently because we don't have any foundational anchor in the Christ. But I'm working on getting them a formula that has no dogma attached to it. It's simply physics based, positive, negative, neutral, and something that all people can use to help them heal, to help them become whole again, because we are in a multi-dimensional space and we've become fractured, and we're kind of naturally working our way back to wholeness now, but we can help ourselves.
Interesting. So I wanted to ask you, you had mentioned that during your journey, you had started to have a lot of negative, like negative thoughts and doubts that were kind of like speaking to you, right? And what this council taught you, this is my understanding of it, is that you can release that, right? You
Yeah.
tell them to leave, okay?
Yeah. I was basically giving them the fuel. And now not all of them were just like entities or human. There were some human spirits in there that I helped. A lot of it was my mind tricking me and me not understanding that my instrument was out of tune. They were the feedback loops, except now I was able to see it. Now I was seeing a system that probably few people had gotten to see.
So what I want to know about is when you talk about the inner child that is also, unhealed at that point, how can you distinguish between the inner child and then these feedback loops, right? Because sometimes because the inner child carries the trauma, correct?
I would say the inner child is more of a triggering, whereas the feedback loops are more patternized. It's a repetition where I'm always triggered by this. I'm always now, yes, feedback loops are gonna run from those wounded child aspects. It's just a projection. I projected this form of myself. Like, for instance, when you leave the house, not many people are the same person in all spaces. They might have a different them at work, a different them with this family, a different them that's home. And so we create these aspects to interface with reality in a way that makes us feel safe and meets other parameters. And so I created a lot of those. However, they had never finished their circuit. They had never got the recognition, the validation, all these things that my parents were unable to give, being not present. I knew they needed to finish their circuit. That's why they were repeating. And so a lot of that and the storage of negative trauma is getting preyed on. And it's actually what's being attacked in humanity. It's like they're using it against us because we can't discern what's what. Now, it's all going to kind of stem from that wounded inner child, that subconscious aspect, but there's going to be other influences that kind of prey on that. They're going to prey on it. They're going to use it to push you around inside your own body. You're not going to have finished thoughts, finished projects. You're going to have pain in your body, a lot of other things.
Right. Okay. All right. And then the inner child work, you don't ever want to tell the inner child to leave. So that with that kind of work, you're bringing in loving kindness, correct?
Right. Yeah. And during sessions with clients and in the group session that I'm going to do in person here this weekend, we ask the inner child to become present. And then we ask, show me what love feels like. Thank you. Show me what peace feels like. Thank you. And we're not only looking to fill ourselves with these energies, we're also looking to see what's out of tune. Now I'm testing to see how in tune I am, as well as enlightening the neural pathways in my body, because it's all about rewiring the mind, heart, and body together as one. That's the three to make into one, because it is one. So yeah, I hope I answered that.
Yes, you did. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, so we have like 10 minutes left, and so I want to check in with everyone and see if there's any questions. Let me just check the
By
chat.
the way, everybody, I'm pretty normal. If you met me on the street, you would never even know. I grew up really normal. I like working on cars. I like doing regular stuff. But it's just, this is another part of me.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and it's wonderful. It's wonderful that you're able to help so many people and work with people in this way. So
I'm
yeah,
thankful, gifted. I never thought, I'm like, yeah, you got the wrong guy. I'm like, so that's
right.
why I firmly know everything I went through, that this is for everybody. And if I can do it, anybody can
Yeah,
return themselves to wholeness.
wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Steve. All right. Anybody have any questions, comments, thoughts, insights? All right. We have a quiet group today. A quiet group.
No worries. I will encourage everyone in the group to know what the sensation of truth feels like in your body, aside from a subject. You need to know what truth as a sensation and a completed thought circuit feels like in the body, aside from subjects around you. When you begin to say to yourself, I'm already loved, I am whole, I am validated, and you feel that it's true, then you're hitting the sweet spot of the bat, so to speak. Now, when you question that, that means there's still a party that's kind of disconnected. And so you want to really connect deeply to what does truth feel like in my body when I speak it? And remember that that is a GPS marker for you to return to ground yourself.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you for saying that. All right, Alice. I see Alice is brave. She's going to ask a question.
You're
Can you,
still on mute, though, Alice.
can you unmute?
I forgot. There we go. I just wondered, can you recall these beings? I mean, at will, or do they just randomly show up and
They're always with me. They're always with us.
and
They
and
are you. They are me.
okay, and they're not aliens, like you said. They're not,
Not in a traditional sense, though
but
they
it's like,
exist foreign to us. Yeah.
but it's more like energy and
Frequency and energy. Yes.
okay.
Um,
Yeah. Because the way you described them earlier, Steve, you said that when you had your first near-death experience, you saw them, right? But you couldn't see their faces, but they were filled with light,
yes.
kind of like a silhouette of their body, kind of, because they were wearing robes, so it wasn't, you couldn't really see their body.
Right. They
But
were just pure light.
pure
And
light and love,
same
right?
as the memories that I began to have when these otherworldly visitors began to contact me. Again, I was skeptic. I'm like, leave me alone, dude. You got the wrong person. But
Right.
when they began to contact me, I was not only having dreams, I was not only getting pulled out of my body into this white light and I had no pain, sank back into my body and I had pain, but um, they were also showing me memories that I had of standing at a console and logging into this experience, literally going down and logging in after I'd done programming with other beings of light, though we didn't have robes. We were just light.
Wow.
These beings had robes. So what for whatever reason. And same thing, like in the sessions, my clients will see, I've had clients see Jesus. I've had clients see angels. I've had clients see different things of angelic, alien nature. I'm sorry. Different beings.
Mhm.
And so I kind of see them as just beings of energy, and I don't really need to label them.
Right. But you're not talking about anything that people, I know a lot of people, when they hear aliens or
Mhm.
ETs, they get very scared because we've been, like kind of brainwashed to believe that any kind of alien or ET contact
Systems.
are these grays with the big eyes, and they're pulling people out of their beds and they're abducting them and doing these medical experiments. But that is not the case. Most people that have, um,
That's very rare, and
yes.
and yeah, it exists, but it's not something that you even need to think about. Do not negotiate with fear. Fear is the enemy, trying to separate you from identity.
Yeah.
Okay, so when I can look at this as just another distortion and feedback, and not give it an opinion. I don't need to think about fear to know that it is fear, and just acknowledge it at that. It's going to have little consequence, but no, it's not in that way.
And you go back to that GPS system, right? As long as you're feeling that love, because
Mhm.
you can't fake love,
Yeah.
right?
You
Love
are
is
truth embodied, and that's why you want to return to it.
That's right. And if you feel, if you're in the present or a being is working with you and you feel that love, there is nothing, like you said, there's nothing to fear. And
That's what won me over, is
yes,
the tangible, real feeling.
right. But even if there's a negative feeling to something, you always have the power to say you're not welcome here and you
Mhm.
need to go. Because
Yeah, and I look at it like the yin and the yang. I want you to be and you to be in harmony, and there's a polarity there. It should be in balance,
right,
but I'm the authority in the system. I
that's
have the last say. So I will acknowledge this energy with gratitude. Thanks for what it taught me. You meant so much.
right.
All parts of me have purpose, meaning, and value, all forms I was ever in. However, I don't identify with you anymore. I send you into the sun, the Christ, the singularity, my heart field that is 5,000 times stronger than my brain, that is like a quantum generator that I can power up by plugging in, no different than a car battery with black and red posts, by plugging in and connecting the polarity of my cells together in my field. I can self actualize as truth.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Mhm. Hopefully, I answered that.
All right. Well, I am so happy that you guys were all here today. And it's 111, which I just like to make note of because, those numbers are sometimes when you are having spiritually transformative experiences or when you're on this kind of path, these numbers come up in pivotal moments, right, or synchronistic moments, and it's kind of interesting when it happens, and it can be 11 11 111 12 12 2 2 2 4 4 and so it just that's why I made note of it. So anyway, all right, well, I just want to anybody else have a question before we go? Because
Significance of the 111.
well, for me, 1111 is it's something that started happening to me once I had my awakening back in 2008.
Okay.
And it's just kind of like a what do you call it? Steve, do you have a way of describing it? For me, it's just like pay
It
attention. It's
really depends on where you are in your journey as to the meaning of its discovery in your reality. And so there are meanings for certain numbers, 1111.
Yeah.
You look it up on the internet. However, I see it as binary code because we are in a place based on mathematics.
okay.
There's no way this universe could have been built without it. And so
Right.
I see the Trinity in everything. I see, the numbers as being a large part of telling these energies how to interact.
Yeah.
But I see it as a collapse usually of two opposing fields into one, and then I get the recognition.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
man, I'm going to tell you, it's like you sent someone to Home Depot to build you a garden shed, and you told them get specific material for this shed so that it doesn't fall down. That's what your thoughts and emotions are for your reality. You need to be the watcher of that builder that you have sent to get this material, who is also you. And so be the watcher of the material building your reality that is your thoughts and your emotions. And understand that it's going to, whatever I create in here, this sacred love story with creation is going to loop back to me in some point or another.
Beautiful. Yeah, for me, these numbers started coming in a lot with synchronicities that were happening. So just things that you would never imagine could be, linked up together. And then I would just happen to look at, the clock or, see on my phone, and then the number would come up and it would be right at the right time. And it happens quite frequently. And what I've discovered is when I am on, like when I'm headed in a direction that I feel in alignment with, my soul feels in alignment with, right? That brings me joy, that makes me happy, that helps others. That's when I'm getting more of those numbers. I'm seeing more of those
Yeah.
numbers, and I see them probably a few times a day. But when I am, attached to fear and, going down the path of negativity in my life, I'm not seeing those numbers anymore.
And what that does is contract your nervous system and it squishes your identity.
Yep.
And that's why I think it's so important that we are able to identify ourselves as something larger than what we are doing. I am not just a father. I'm not just a worker. I'm not just this. I am the trees. I am the water. I am the sun. Speaking that into your body can make it so much easier to expand. And how about the moments where you're just driving and your head turns and you just look at something and it says
Right.
exactly what? Yeah.
What you were just asking in your or thinking about in your mind,
Yep.
right? And then there's the answer on the license plate, or
And I'll be like, dang, am I up there playing myself with a remote control right now? Because I think I am.
all right, I see Alice has her hand up.
Yeah,
Alice?
I just wondered whether you or Stephen ever had any negative feedback from religious organizations with this,
Oh, yeah.
because I see that you're a reverend, and I
Yes.
wonder if this
Yes, I
whole
am.
thing conflicts with that.
No, not at all, because I am an interspiritual minister, and I was ordained an interspiritual minister, and that is actually not um, it's not really a religion, it's more a philosophy and a way of life, and it honors all religions and faith traditions that are anchored into truth, which is love. It's the
Hmm.
common thread that spans throughout all religions and faith traditions. It's not the dogmatic piece. It's not the hell and, the fear, and
Hmm.
it is not any of that. So what I'm doing is, and I have a ministry that I've developed, and I knew that I was going to be doing something different, right? That what's already been done with interspiritual. I don't bring in other religions and things like that. I just it's more of like a heart connection, and people that are having spiritual awakenings, people that have had STEs, NDEs, and people that are very interested in these. So my part of my ministry is being a voice and being, helping to bring validity and understanding to these beautiful experiences that
I
we're
resonate with
Thank
that
you.
so much, so
yeah.
much. Yet I've been attacked many
Mm.
times,
Mhm.
social media, in person, whatever it is, for me to donate my time to heal a sick child in the name of Jesus, I'm working with the devil.
Wow.
Only Jesus can do that. Now,
Yeah.
I believe he was showing us something to participate in the healing of the world and to showing us how to embody the Christ. I mean, if I'm the body of the Christ, I should be able to embody the Christ. It's already the body. Then what's going on the inside? So, yeah, I've definitely been attacked. However, I have also spoken at churches. Ironically, the church was the Triangle Church.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
No, I had no idea when it
Wow.
happened, but yes, another synchronicity, right? I'm now speaking at the Triangle Church in the Bible Belt.
Wow.
You
Oh
know?
boy.
Yeah, I was in North Carolina. Yep.
Oh my
Wow.
goodness. That was made just for you with your experiences, right?
It's like walking through a movie, like
Yeah.
a live, it's almost virtual reality that we kind of, it's so real, we kind of forgot that it was virtual reality in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, because when we come into these bodies, we choose to forget who we truly are. So part of what we're doing is we're rediscovering who we truly are when we are starting to connect in with our own spiritual truth and our spiritual path. So, and it's fun. It's a lot of fun, isn't it, Steve? Now,
It is. I love plugging
yeah,
myself
yeah.
into the nature, the trees, and the people. And
And
I always
magical
thought
things happen, right?
yeah.
Magical things that you would
I,
never have imagined. I
and
would
you
not
grow up
20 years ago that I would have all these experiences. So,
never. Yeah, you grow up thinking, I got to protect myself. I got to shut my heart down. No, man, my protection is an open heart,
yeah.
beaming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
I
It's-
gotta do that.
yeah. You'll feel so good, Grace. Yeah, you'll feel.
Well, I'll tell you, Grace, it took me many years, and I don't exactly trust people, but I trust frequency and tone. So
Okay.
I had a lot of trauma. It took me a long time to learn first to feel love between me and the tree, me and the grass, me and the water. That felt safe to me. And I was able to
Yes.
relearn it back into my system and then slowly allow those in alignment back
Yeah.
into, yeah.
And
Right.
you know what else helped me? I adopted 2 little Chihuahua boys. They're twins, and they they were a year old, and when I first got them, they were so scared. They would be like,
Oh,
they would
Oh,
fight each other. They were scared of everyone. But oh my God, the love these 2 little boys bring me every day. I just,
right.
oh, they're like my heart. They're part of my heart and soul, you know? So animals and nature and,
mhm.
anything that brings you joy, creativity, like painting or drawing or listening
I found,
to
and the
music.
most useful is I found is waking up in the morning and giving your biological computer the program that it needs to sustain your higher self in this reality. So, my cats, just like you were mentioning with your dogs, they're just bundles of love.
Yeah.
But also, I just wanted to mention, before we wrap up, if you wake up in the morning and learn how to speak to your body as if something's already finished and don't negotiate with the feedback, say, I already am whole, I'm already loved, I'm already blessed, I'm already this, you're going to move differently throughout your day.
Yeah.
It sounds like the law of attraction again.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And
I read 2
gratitude.
books since last week.
Oh, good for you. Good for you, Grace. All right. Asking it is
We're
given.
working on it. We've got to get
That's a
back
good
to my
one.
20s.
Yeah. And you know what worked really for me was gratitude, being grateful. Like
Mm,
just,
Yes.
every morning, just being aware of what I'm grateful for in my life. Oh my God, I'm in my nice, comfy, cozy bed. I have my nice, comfy,
yeah.
cozy, I mean, just
You
anything that,
got your pets.
Well, it's so much easier when you attach it to a non-personal object. So,
yeah.
like, the tree never did nothing to me. Thank you to the tree. Thank you to the sun. Thank you to the bird. And it's so much cleaner. And then I realized, I'm like, wait a minute. I sync my Bluetooth headset to my phone. Right now, I'm syncing my mind to my heart in the morning. I'm literally sending neurons that are going to sync it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
So much behind it.
this was wonderful. And I love your background. I'll share a story
Yes.
today.
I
I
got to change mine between the 2 of
love
you.
love it. That's great. All right,
All
everybody.
right.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much for being here today. And thank you, Steve. This was fabulous. I so appreciate you.
Very happy to be here. Thank everybody
Thank
for
you.
listening.
Yeah, and I
Thank
so
you.
appreciate
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
everyone. See you next
See you.
week. Have a great
Okay.
Okay.
week.
You too.
You too.